What's going on, guys? Dr. Shak here. Welcome back to another video. So I noticed this comment. It was asking about sort of like what the timeline should be for MCAT preparation. And in this video, I wanted to address that. I wanted to talk about, my experience preparing for the MCAT and just general advice with that. Let's get right into this. But first, if you're new, definitely consider subscribing. Is there a correct timeline to take the MCAT? What does it take to properly study, and what does it take to score well? People that study for the MCAT study differently, and it defines how the level of success for the MCAT isn't determined by how much you study, but it's by the quality of study that you do. The MCAT is a unique test that showcases your weaknesses, and it forces you to adapt from those weaknesses in order to successfully do well. Believe me, that first exam or that first practice exam that you take is going to be very eye-opening in terms of what you know and what you don't know, and not just in content review, but also like your test taking strategies, because the MCAT is way different from any college exam or any exam that you've taken in the past. Now, me specifically, it took me about 6 months to prepare for the MCAT. It might take people more time or even less time to prepare. And I know there's this thing called life. People have other things going on, like they have to work a full-time job or a part-time job. There's certain things that are kind of standing in the way of MCAT preparation. So keep that into consideration and kind of have a rough timeline where you feel comfortable preparing for the MCAT exam. When I say comfortable preparing, I mean it should be in a certain environment where you can fully focus and not have many distractions aside from the essential things that you need. Now, of course, there's going to be like, if you're working, that's going to be part of your life, but I'm talking about a certain time frame where you're permitted to study for larger durations of time, where you have to commit at least 9 hours of your day to prepare. So for me, that was 6 months, because during the pandemic, I was at home, so I was able to prepare in that way. So let's say like you were taking the MCAT in January or June. What you first need to do is allocate some time for content review. And content review usually takes around 2 to 3 months if you really wanted to learn everything for the first time. But if you've already taken the pre-med classes like biochemistry, biology, general chemistry, I would honestly just spend about a month and a half on relearning some of the stuff that you already covered. Now, there are great textbooks out there that you can use. I would say probably invest in Kaplan. Kaplan's great because it covers everything, and if you are one of those people that likes to have a hard copy in front of you and not like a soft copy or like a PDF online, Kaplan is one of the best sources that you can use. If you don't want to spend that much money on Kaplan, which as it is, it's very expensive, I would honestly go to Jack Weston, which is a great website because it has content that's basically listed in terms of the learning objective or the MCAT objectives that they're going to be assessing. So it organizes information in the form of foundational concepts, and you can scroll through each and every one of them to see which piece of information is relevant to that and which is covered in that. The great thing about Jack Weston is that once you finish reading about a certain foundational concept, you can test yourself using some of the passages that Jack Weston has. And there's a wide variety of passages that you can use for each subject too. It's not just chemistry and physics section. It's not just the biochem section. It's also cars. It's also psych and social. I would highly urge you to start with biochemistry, because biochemistry is a high yield pool of information that they can ask from. So if you were going to start a subject, definitely start with biochemistry, particularly the amino acids. Once you're done with content review, the next thing to do is just keep practicing. It's 20% content review and 80% practicing, because 90% of the exam is based on passage-based questions. So definitely familiarize yourself with that. Okay, now that we talked about content review, the next thing to focus on is practice exams and practice questions. So basically, once you finish about a month or 2 months or maybe even 3 months of content review, start doing practice exams every week and make sure to review those exams. So what I mean by review is not just looking at the wrong answers, but also looking at the right answers, because you need to understand why test prep company put that logic in there. Why did they write that test question and why did you get it right? That's the main thing that you have to understand. It goes for wrong answers as well. I know that reviewing some of the questions, it takes a while, but it's definitely worth it because it helps mentally prepare you for test day. It helps condition you to the rigors of the MCAT. Take note that as you're reviewing, be sure to constantly covering in content review, especially the stuff that you were getting wrong or you didn't know completely. For the stuff that you got wrong on any kind of practice exam, keep a note on what foundational concept that was that you got wrong, and then revisit that in your content review. In terms of practice exam resources, definitely start by utilizing some of the third-party companies like Blueprint, Kaplan, Princeton Review, Altius. They're good for an initial phase of doing test questions because they help you understand how to properly get used to the test taking environment or test taking conditions. Some of these tests are known to deflate your score though, so don't get too discouraged if you're not happy with one of your test scores. So you keep doing this until the last 1 month leading up to your test day, or maybe a month and a half leading up to your test day, where in that last month you have to strictly do the AAMC resources, because this company actually wrote the MCAT exam. So getting used to the logic that they have, it comes down to whether you practice extensively a lot of their resources. So practice exams, subject bank questions, question banks. In that last month, definitely try to fit in 2 practice exams per week, and make sure to also do the question banks, like I said, because a lot of the times you might even recognize on your test day some of the questions that they use in the question banks. I remember there was this one question that I just impulsively selected the right answer because it seemed like they were retesting that question on my actual exam. One thing that you'll notice when you're practicing for the MCAT section, the way you approach the questions on each section is going to be different per section. So your Chem Phys section, the way you approach questions is going to be way different from how you would approach the biochem questions. For Chem Phys, for example, you can probably get away with a lot of not reading the passage and just going straight to the questions if you did a very thorough content review of the relevant subjects like organic chemistry or even Gen Chem. If you thoroughly read and take notes and prepare for the content review for this section, it definitely helps you with a better score. That definitely helped me on my Chem Phys section. And I can link one of my separate videos on just Chem Phys in the comments below. A lot of the way to approach biochem questions are strictly passage-based, because you're going to have to analyze a lot of the scientific literature that they're putting in the passage. And honestly, it's the same way to approach psych-social questions. Alright, the last thing that I wanted to mention was the MCAT cars. If you're going to start practicing anything, start with cars, because the car section forces you to read in under extremely stressful conditions. And not to mention the passages are very bland and just dense and boring, that scoring well on cars requires a lot of preparation beforehand. You need to be able to grasp the main point of a passage and at the same time parse out the irrelevant information, and at the same time answer the questions effectively in a second or third order manner. This kind of critical thinking takes months of practice, even before you even attempt the other science sections of the MCAT. If you would start practicing anything, start with cars. I'm going to link a separate video that I used that was super helpful for my cars preparation in the description below. Also, do the exact same thing when you review whatever you get wrong on the cars sections, because you need to understand the logic that's being used by the test writers, especially for AMC. This is sort of my experience and my advice for correctly planning for the MCAT preparation. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for your support, and I hope this video helps with your future endeavors. If you like the content, leave a like and subscribe if you're new. Like always, I like keeping it real with you. Peace.